everyone, and welcome to episode 66 of Podcast of Five Rings, your source of enlightenment in the realm of video games, tabletop, anime, film, and tech. Each episode of Podcast of Five Rings releases Monday mornings on iTunes and SoundCloud, and Talk About Topic day by day on YouTube, with the full video releasing on Friday. To catch updates about the podcast or for other news, give us a follow on your social media platform of choice, listed in the description below. I'm your host, GM, and overseer of Podcast of Five Rings, Obsidian, joined tonight by the Dark Fortune Duelist Meta.
Yar.
He's got, is it Talk Like a Pirate Day?
No,
that was close. It was a few weeks ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like, I think it was the 19th last month, and I didn't even notice it until it was that night. I was like, well, damn it.
I missed my whole chance to walk with a peg leg, had my parrot, my eye patch.
I had everything ready. I had a whole pirate outfit in my closet, prepped, and then I forgot.
God dang it.
I was going to go rent a boat, and I was going to go plunder. It's going to be great.
Sell the seven seas. Leave this world behind.
Sail the seven streams.
Well, happy belated Talk Like a Pirate Day to you, sir.
Thank you.
And we got the resident wild card, Mal.
Who are you people? Where am I?
I don't know. Where are any of
us? I've used this joke before.
Where are any of us?
Quiet, Mao. Captives don't talk.
We've returned from our bonds in the Shadow Realm. We all got banished there for the past few weeks.
We did. I definitely did, for sure.
Real life hits you like a truck, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tets was in partying and gambling in Vegas for 2 weeks.
Oh, I'm sure.
Spending all of his money rolling them dice, and then he threw his back out rolling his dice.
It was just so much rolling of the die that he eventually he pulled a muscle on it, and that throughout his whole day. It was so hard rolling those dice at that craps table. Just roll after.
They're a lot heavier than gaming dice, right?
Yeah, and you have to throw them a little bit harder because you have to make sure they bounce off the wall once, otherwise it doesn't count. So you really got to put some effort into it.
Well, I'm taking your money now. They didn't bounce. Didn't bounce against the wall. You lose. Dealer wins.
Do it again, and we're gonna have to eject you from the game.
So, yeah, it's October now. It's the month of Spoopy.
Spoopy, the skeleton.
Oh yes, like all the memes say.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, what have you guys been up to other than life?
Well, I mean, work, video games,
Work.
Yes, that's all right.
Saw the My Hero Academy movie. That's why I couldn't be here last week.
How was it? Because a friend invited me, and I had to actually skip out on that.
I quite liked it, but I mean, it's like watching the anime just in a longer format. The story is like what you would expect from that sort of like self-contained, can't do anything that breaks the actual manga or
the canon,
story, canon type thing. But it was fun.
So it's kind of like the Naruto movies in that sense, then.
I guess.
How much edge was in the movie? I need to know where Tokuyami is in the movie.
You see him on the sidewalk once.
Okay, gotcha. Is Todoroki in it at all?
Yes.
Too? Does he get more to do?
Yes.
Than that, yeah. It's like him and Bakugo and Deku are obviously going to be like the ones who probably do anything.
Then
Urara.
What's her
Uhara from Star Trek.
Yeah, Uhara.
Momo? No. What is that's the creation chick's girl's name. I'm blanking on it.
Yeah, that's it, Momo.
Okay, yeah. And then
Momoko, or I think is her
Jiro with the earjacks.
Yeah.
And then also the electricity guy and Mineta for some reason. They really didn't need to be in it, but those are kind of the ones that
Mineta's like my least favorite character of the main ones.
He's not a lot of people's favorites, but he's the author's favorite. So.
Yeah.
Like the worst thing about
perverted
manga.
jokes.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into topics, shall we?
Sure.
Meta, you're up first. What do you got?
Well, past couple of weeks have obviously been pretty busy. I've been I had to go out 2 weeks ago because I had to get a car looked at, and it turns out I had a recall on it. So I
Oh,
I
nice.
had to.
What kind of car is it?
It is a Lamborghini, obviously.
Like they never recall anything.
I know,
Yeah,
right?
I know, right?
So I just got on my private jet and I flew over to Italy. And I had them take care of it. No, no,
You
I
got
have
a Ferrari
a
instead.
yeah, yeah. I don't know my cars that well. So no, it was I had a Toyota Corolla, and they had a recall on it. Apparently, some of the models were designed to be a little bit more sporty. The way the steering column was set and the amount of work and torsion that's put on it for the programming is designed to be a little bit more sporty.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out somebody might have not carried the fucking one, because what ended up happening was that these cars, if they were put under too much stress, the steering column would snap. It would just completely snap.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, you're locked off from your front wheels, which the car is front wheel drive. So
Yeah.
as you can imagine, you really can't continue to steer anymore. And they decided that maybe that's a bad thing. So
until we get self-steering cars, right? Get on that.
yeah,
Elon
until we get
Musk.
self-steering cars. Well, hopefully they don't use the steering column either. Otherwise, you're still screwed.
Yeah.
So brought in, they had to just update the computer on it, and fine. It just takes like an hour and a half, because I guess they also wash your car in the process. Because when I got back to the car, there was water on the front of the window. It was clean. Yeah, I was like, what the fuck? But that was the last Thursday, and then, well, no, 2 Thursdays ago, and then last Thursday, I went over and I had to talk to Dad because he needed. So. I just took the whole day off, and not the whole day off, but I kind of
left early.
Yeah. So I was just doing that for the whole evening, just with them, making okay, because had looking around inside the body, but it took so I was making sure he was okay.
Yeah.
And then just these past couple weeks, it's just been very but it did gave me time to think a lot of. And,
a lot of just sitting and thinking.
Yeah, pretty much. And like at first, like it jumped to like just gaming in general. I was like, what am I gonna do for the next week? What's the games that were coming out that I was looking forward to? I should probably get a list of those. And then I started like looking into Starfinder, because I've recently actually started up a Starfinder campaign for the gaming group.
Nice.
Friday up. So we got that up. We got running, and I was looking at some of the rules and whatnot. And I mean, I love creating things. I love working on things because and it's no fault of my own. There's no fault on this one. I enjoy being busy a lot. It lets me do stuff. So I mean, I'm running a game on Sunday. I've got a game on Friday. Hang with the group Thursday. We're doing a GM group of Divinity 2. So we're using that system. And then on every other Saturday, I'm stuff for P group and Final Fantasy. And that uses the Fate system. So I've got 4 games running. Which is a lot, yes, but it's kept me busy, and it's not been an overload yet, so we'll see how that goes. But obviously it leads to a lot of creation time, a lot of working on things, looking at something and saying like, how can I make it better? And I mean, that started with Starfinder, but then it obviously it led into like kind of looking at different versions of games, because I was like, there's a lot of games that come out in the past, there's different editions and whatnot. And they've changed rules, and they do a lot of things, and you sometimes get very big extremes, like say from 4th edition L5R to the newest 5th edition, where it's not only in the hands of a completely different company, but a humongously different system. Although at its core, it's still the rule keep design, but there's a lot of different things that incorporate for it, especially with the unique. And then you get things that are drastic and change on a more fundamental level of the design intent of itself, or something like a 3.5 to 4th edition. And then there's things that are not so much different, but simplified or made sleeker and cleaner, which is like 3.5 and 5th edition. And it kind of got me thinking, like, with all these different editions, all these different rules, and I was kind of looking them at the back and forth to pull inspiration from them, because you can still incorporate ideas even if the system doesn't utilize it and whatnot. And it got me thinking about D&D in general and the different editions it's gone through. It's been through, 1st edition, advanced, and that's technically 2nd edition as well. Then you had 3rd edition, which was then revised for 3.5. Then you led in 4th edition, which had its ups and downs. and then eventually the 5th edition, which has emerged and become a very, very popular system. And I know we've all played Dungeons and Dragons. I know we've all, it's kind of, you might argue that's like where most people would start from. In fact, I would posit that as a fact. But it kind of got me thinking, is like, there's a lot of different versions that we like about these games. There's different editions that we really enjoy, and editions that either don't hit home, or some people would even say probably deserve to burn in the pits of hell itself. And I was thinking, like, you guys, you've played them, and what were your favorite editions? And what were the editions that didn't click with you, or ones that you think should earnestly just have been shot before it even got a chance to go out into the world?
What about you, Mal?
All right. Well, I've played 2, 3, 4, and 5. 3 being 3.5.
Yeah.
3.
That kind of, so it depends a bit. Like, man, I really like 3.5 and 5e to the point where sometimes I'm not sure which one I prefer more. It would be an easy choice for 5e if there was more in the system. Like, I guess it depends. Like, if you want to look at it from rules, like if I were to only choose from the core books of each system, it would be 5e.
I could see that easily, yeah.
Yeah, but 3.5 has so much, which I know a lot of, like, which is also a downside for a lot of people, like Tets.
And me.
It's a lot of crunch.
Yeah.
It's a lot of crunch.
But I love all those different character options and stuff.
That's
where it becomes difficult.
I know where you're coming from on that, because options to me are such a big thing. I love choices.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's always cool when you can basically have. I can start with like a barbarian and end up 10 different places, and someone else who's playing a barbarian too, just with the whole prestige class system and stuff. And
yeah, if I could guarantee like that I was going to get to play a bunch of games like with the same system, it would be 3.5. Definitely.
There was a lot. God, that system, yeah. I mean, there's so much to that game, and the OGL, I believe is what it was called, allowed for so much. A lot of broken things, but it still allowed for a lot of good things to come through.
But as far as mechanical wise, I really like the simplicity that 5e brought. Like, there's a lot going on in 3.5 mechanics wise, to the point where like it can definitely become a detriment. And as for the other editions, I don't hate 4e as much as others. I'm basically fine with it. And honestly, if I had to choose between playing a 2e game and a 4e game, I would probably choose 4e.
Do that.
I like 2e in my Baldur's Gate, like when it's computerized.
I think that's how most people have experienced 2e.
Right. But I don't really want to play it when I have to like look through the books and remember certain things, like Thaco, and which I know if I used it enough, I would remember it more, but I don't. And Baldur's Gate does it for me, so I don't have to care. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, I wouldn't want to play a ton of 4e games, probably. Like, there's definitely a limit, which is why it's not my favorite or anything. But I think I still prefer it more than 2e. And, I mean, they basically took a bunch of the good ideas from 4e into 5e, like hit dice and stuff.
Are you trying to tell me that you don't like a good old-fashioned Thaco score?
Nope.
She's thick with that Thaco. How thick is your Thaco? Is it Bowsette level thick?
Oh God!
Oh jeez!
You knew I was gonna work it.
Honestly, I'm side tangent. I'm not gonna say that I was full in love with the whole Bowsette thing.
You're in love with Boozette.
I mean,
God, did I ride that wave?
As we all did, Meta. As we all did.
I enjoyed what that was so much. Like, so much came out of that. I
liked all the mangaka's drawings over.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was great.
Awesome. But anyways,
Yes, I'm sorry about that.
No, it's fine.
Well, it's October now, so everyone's into Buet, right?
yeah, everyone's into Bouzette now. Bouzette.
And Yoshi or whatever.
What about you, Obs?
Okay,
Man
so
of mystery.
I've never played 2E, even though I own actually a bunch of books for it.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
still
got
have
a
quite
bunch
few
at a
2E
yard
books.
sale for like $1 a book. Some at like a local used bookstore. So I mean, I have probably like five 2E books, but I've never played it. I've heard lots of stories about it. I have friends who grew up on AD&D and stuff. But yeah, like the first game I ever played was 3.5, but it wasn't a full campaign. And I've never played a full campaign of 3.5. I've only played like one-shots before I really got heavy into role-playing. What were you going to say, Mel?
I was just going to say my first RP experience in general was actually a Slayers source book based on 3.5.
Wow.
Wow.
That is random.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of
The
people
the
like
DM
Slayers, so I'm not
loved
surprised.
Slayers, and I quite like Slayers.
Yeah, I like Slayers too.
I don't think I've ever played it.
The first
But watched
campaign,
it.
first campaign of a game I fully played was actually Star Wars D6. But anyways, so yeah, never really played a whole lot of 3.5. Like Mal was saying, I kind of fall on the side of there's too much crunch. It's like crunchy
Did you ever
peanut
play
butter.
any of the D20 L5R?
Yes, I did. I played probably about 5 sessions of that.
Okay, that's 3.0.
It's 3 point. Yeah, it's a version of.
Just gonna
of
say that might
D&D
be
at that
more
time.
where more of your experience comes from.
Yeah, I've actually probably played more Oriole Adventures than I have actual 3.5, but played a pretty good amount of 4E. More 5E now than 4E, but I really like 4E. It was my favorite until basically me and my group played a whole 5E game and 5E pulled ahead. But 4E actually has a lot of choice as far as class goes. Like by the end of the game, there's a ton of classes and alternate powers and stuff for the classes that you could pick. That's basically where a lot of your like agency and choice of how to build your character came from, was your class features. And I was never one for the whole like I always refer to as the console war, but the edition war for D&D. It was very much like until 5e came out, it was very much like divisive anytime anyone talked about it. Like anytime anyone said they liked 4e, people would jump down their throat. Anytime the 4e people said 3.5 was crap, and it started an argument. So I really enjoy 4E. I mean, it makes combat really fun and interesting. Fighters are really, like I've talked about before, I think we had a topic about our favorite builds. The 4E fighters, like probably one of, if not my favorite class for minigame, just because I love the way it tanks. Is very tactical.
I mean, the whole edition though was very tactical. Like
Exactly.
Some people even point out that pretty much if you love tabletop miniature games, that is like the de facto edition for you.
Yeah.
Because it does exactly what you kind of want, which is almost, I would almost argue in a sense, is kind of like what Final Fantasy Tactics is. It's a small group of units that have a lot of abilities that can work in tandem with one another and have certain roles that they can fill and sometimes maybe split a little bit out of.
Yeah, they broke it. I mean, a lot of people's complaints is that they kind of broke it into like MMO style stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, that was a big.
A lot of people felt like they were playing an MMO, and my biggest thing is probably like a lot of the classes at least feel samey between each other, especially when they're in the same like what was it, defender controller thing.
Yeah, that was a lot of. Unfortunately, there was kind of like I don't remember the term.
Like they took a lot of the like. They all felt mechanically very similar, and they took away a lot of the flavor built in, or whatever.
I can't remember the term, but it's like a term is like monoism or something where it's like everything's kind of just the same, and regardless, it might be presented differently. Like, oh, this is fast slash, and oh, you get heavy swing, but they have
there was always like have like a really accurate attack where you get like a +2 bonus to the attack roll, and it would just do weapon damage, or take 2 attacks. Or do like a double weapon damage attack, but it was less accurate.
And then like every class was built based on as you level up, it's like, all right, everyone's this level now. Everyone gets their, out of encounter ability or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And then like everyone's this level, everyone gets a 1 per day ability now.
Yeah.
That's-
There wasn't really like
I
a
think.
variance in how
Which
your level
they
scaled.
did try a few classes towards the end of life that broke away from that, I believe. I think they're called like the essentials, or like there's like a fighter, a slayer, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a few others, but not very many. But I do remember them trying to address it, and then I think they're probably just like, well, we're going to go into 5e now.
Yeah, a lot of design philosophy and kind of what their vision of the game was. I think they basically said that the reason it was designed kind of MMO-y was Wizards really started focusing on people who played online with friends across the country and the world, and they were going to launch basically in. I read I watched a video about this. It's really fascinating a few weeks ago about 4E and like the design of it and stuff. They were going to launch their own online virtual tabletop meeting thing that Wizards was designing. I don't think it ever came to fruition.
Yeah.
So they wanted it to kind of play very much like a video game.
It's not surprising that they probably felt they could get more people by making it accessible online.
Yeah.
Like, there's way more people that would be able to play the game if you could just easily set up an online game versus, in person. Which I mean, before, like, recently, tabletop RPGs has kind of, like, had a
boom.
Definitely an upswing in, like, people even playing face-to-face with things like Critical Role and stuff. And now you have Roll20 and all that, so it doesn't need to be tactical even, and all,
Yeah, I mean, I also, if I actually remember, because I used to get the Dragon magazine actually for a while, and I kind of followed like what was going on. And if I remember correctly, there was an interview at some point or something. I don't remember the exact source, and God knows I'll never find it. But I remember them specifically stating that they wanted to aim the market at an area where people were more familiar with.
Right, and I mean that was probably during like when WoW and stuff had huge
it was
huge mark, huge
2008,
it was
2009.
absolutely the reason. I mean, that was the underlining text, was that we want to make a game that's more like the WoW that everybody plays.
We can get some of that user base and probably double.
And that really was the goal.
Yeah, pull a small fraction of WoW players into the game and still like double or triple your user base or whatever, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm sure that was what the goal was, because I remember, like I said, I remember seeing reviews on it, or an interview with something on review, but an interview with somebody just saying that they want to expand the user base. They want to make it more accessible, which is a term for it. We want to make it in some way that'll get more people in.
Which they did do with 5e, but in a completely different way.
Yes, they did.
It was basically the best of both worlds. 4E is actually pretty crunchy, but all the crunch is what your character specifically does. The system itself is a lot more simpler in a way like 5e is simple compared to 3.5. But yeah, 5e is to me just like also just the best of both worlds, like you were saying. It takes cool stuff like rests and hit DOS and hit DOS or healing surges, basically.
When my biggest complaint of 5e is that there's not enough of it, it's pretty good.
Yeah, that's like a good complaint. It's a backhanded compliment, Mal.
Well, I mean, it's a fair complaint to have, though, because
it is.
But it also shows how much you already you do like it, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Because if your biggest complaint is that like I want more stuff for the game, then eventually it's going to get to the point where there's a lot of stuff for the game. Mm-hmm. Ideally. I will admit they have been kind of, maybe I'm wrong, but from what I've seen, there's not a lot of books. Like there might be supplements.
Lots of adventure books.
Yeah.
Well, I think they figured, or I think they saw the numbers, and like adventures sell better, and they're a lot smaller now. Like when 5e came out, I think it was like 16 was like the top amount of people in D&D or the WotC section of D&D, which is not a lot of people, right? Mm-hmm. Like they're very small section of Wizards of the Coast now, or I mean now they're probably a bit bigger. Maybe, who knows? But that was 16 people spread against design, art, social media, and stuff.
Yeah.
But they have been kind of ramping it up a bit, even if it is still a lot of adventure stuff. Like you just have, what is it, Waterdeep,
Yeah.
Yep. Waterdeep just came out.
And they're about to have a
Eberron
sequel
and
to
Ravnica's about to come out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
and
definitely
then they
tried
have
a
a
lot
5
of
to
stuff.
20. Yeah, level 5 to 20, just random. They're like Waterdeep 1 to 5, and then this other book 5 to 20.
Yeah. Which I don't think they've had at 220. I think the highest it's gone is 15, I believe. But
That sounds right.
the coolest thing, in my opinion, about 4E, and this is more from a GM aspect. I mean, some players probably appreciate this too, but the monster design in 4E is the best out of any of the editions. Like, they're all cool. They have really cool abilities. Everyone has something interesting to do as far as a monster and like role playing the monsters in the battle and stuff. They all have a cool choice. They're not just like giants in 5e or just sacks of hit points with a club. Like in 4e, a giant would have like different abilities. There might be recharge abilities, like stuff you could do and powers that you could like choose from. So like the monster design in 4e is super sweet, and it's actually I sometimes like refer back to it because I saw a guy recommend that while I was running my last game.
I think though they also messed up on the. I think a lot of the math is wrong though with the 5e stuff. I remember or 4e monster stuff. I remember
it never felt bad to me, but I think you're basically supposed to. Like, the game expects you to have magic items for the players.
Well, I've seen people.
So the monsters are balanced around, like, what gear you should have at that level, essentially.
I've seen posts where, like, I'm running 4E game. What should I expect? And people are like, don't use the early monster stuff without using this converter because they really didn't know, or, like, they really got the early stuff wrong or
something.
Really?
I didn't feel like there was a balance issue, really, when I ran it, so... I don't know, but different experiences.
How big was your group size? I mean, that might
like 4 people. It's like a typical group.
Oh,
I don't know.
But yeah, I also liked how everyone was on a more even playing field power-wise. I think that's something else a lot of people...
I like the idea of that, but again,
it
really just came out to a lot of the everyone's like building.
People who want to play wizards want their wish at level 9 and, you know, their time stop and stuff like that. So, I mean, I understand.
Right.
Yeah.
But I just like that I had cool, interesting tactical choices I could make as a fighter. Like, I got as many powers as a wizard or a cleric did. And that was interesting to me.
So what about the one that you like least? And why?
I would just say 3.5. Not that I hate it, but I just haven't got enough experience with it, and it's really crunchy. And with 5e, I basically have no reason to ever really go back to it.
There's like
to be
50 5e books or 3.5 books or whatever.
Yeah,
so.
there's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of them are also like third-party ones too.
Well, I mean, like even first party. There's a lot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my buddy has a lot of them.
I didn't think there was that many.
I don't know if that's the exact. I mean, I could probably pull it up real quick, but anyway.
What about you, Meta?
Well, I mean, I'm gonna jump over here, and I'm actually gonna say that I have a particular fondness for thank you. That's rude. God. I have a particular fondness for 3.5. That's
I think you grew up playing 3.5 too, didn't you?
3.5 was pretty much how I got introduced. Actually,
God.
I got in before what? How many books?
Between 3.0 and 3.5, it's 110.
Holy shit!
That's across different. That's including So in 3.5, it used Greyhawk as the default setting.
Yeah.
So there were Forgotten Realms and Eberron books as well. So it's also including
Dark
those.
Sun.
It's a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a lot.
That's still tons.
Yeah.
That's like what my ideal is, like when you have 100 plus books. I'm like,
right.
To me, it's like so many options.
Exactly.
So much money.
Very similar.
It's honestly, I mean, I grew up with 3.5, but I mean, I've given, I will say, I did not give a fair shot to 4th edition. But I did look up the books, I looked at it and whatnot, but I never got a chance to play it, and I never really had an interest for it. Some because the game didn't really interest me at all.
We played a few games with my group, but most of my group, well, there were 2 people who really didn't like it. Me and Tets were fine with it. I think Tets preferred it to 3.5. He would have much rather preferred 4.0 to 3.5. But
see that. I mean, but it's just 3.5 for me. I just fell in love with it. there was just the ideas, like, there's so many options that I loved the art styling, the coloring to the books. There was just something mystical and magical about them that my rosy nostalgia will never seem to let go of. Um, but and moreover, there was just I liked the books. I liked what they were. I liked the crunch. I liked how every time you had a new book come out, it really did add in like new classes to play, new
Yeah.
feats to use, new spells to get a hold
Though
of.
the downside to that was there are a lot of classes I like and have no more support outside the book they're in.
Yeah.
Like the Dragon Shaman in Player's Handbook 2.
Oh god,
That's
that
it.
poor class.
Sorry, I think you got one more. You got a feat or whatever in another Dragon book or whatever, like extra aura. But because I love that class, but,
It didn't. I loved Dragon Shaman. I played a Dragon Shaman for a little bit.
dual aura. But yeah,
But 3.5 was full of crunch. It had a lot. There was a lot of options for me, and I
mhm.
really enjoyed like the whole Ultimate Warrior book, the Ultimate, well, not Ultimates, but they were
Complete.
the complete series, which was the Complete Warrior, the Complete Rogue, the Complete, Sorcerer, Wizard, or Magic, stuff like that.
There
I
are 8
enjoyed
complete books.
Yeah, I wish we got more of that.
I really like the fact that those books really did push around a
I
certain.
also liked certain. I liked the Dungeonscape, Cityscape books, which have a lot of like, which talk about a lot of like, running campaigns in certain, like Cityscape is about running campaigns in cities, and it gives you a lot of stuff, rules, and like just things to consider and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then Dungeonscape is the same thing, but for the dungeons. And then
It
there's
was
like
just-
the Draconomicon, which is all about dragons.
there was a lot of books. There was
Yeah.
so many books to go over. I actually loved the fact that it came out with effectively 2 magic, I believe 2 or was it 2 or 1? Maybe I'm wrong.
What?
2 magic item compendium.
Oh,
But I think I might be mistaking just the back of either the player's handbook or the handbook with all
think
the magic.
4E
items.
I
had
know there was
2.
at least there was one. There's the Magic Item Compendium is one
Yes.
book,
Yes.
but yeah, it's a large book of magic.
love
I think is everything in it unique. I think because
I
the Spell
believe
Compendium I think
so.
gathers spells from previous books into it as well.
Yes,
but I think
Spell
the Magic
Compendium
Item
gathered-
Compendium is
believe, yeah.
all unique items. I think.
Yep. That was pretty much it.
Oh, Magic of the Incarnum or whatever was also one of my favorites and didn't get any love outside of it.
There
was all,
was
binding soul magic to basically create magical item abilities or whatever sort of thing.
I loved the Elder Evils book. That was a
Mhm.
great one. I thought that was amazing.
But yeah, there's a
it gave you
lot of
just,
books I like.
The Elder Evils book was fantastic because it gave you these end like apocalyptic scenario type fights. They were great and they were just really big things. There was, let's see here, the Tome books as well. You had Tome and of Battle and the Tome
Yeah,
of
I love the
Magic.
Tome of Battle, and I love the idea of most of the Tome of Magic stuff. Unfortunately, there are 3 classes in Tome of Magic, and one is functionally broken, as in does
Yeah.
not work. Like when you see the 3.5 tier list, True Namer is at the listed as broken, just does not work with skills presented in book. Then there's the Shadowcaster, which was also just kind of crap, and then the Binder was good and interesting and fun.
There was the Races series of books as well, like
Yep.
Races of Stone, Races of Dragon, Races of
Races
Wild.
of Destiny,
Yeah.
which is I always played human, so that's my favorite book. It's got the Chameleon, one of my favorite prestige classes.
Pretty good. And then there were some cool books like the Libris Mortis, the Book of the
Oh yeah,
Dead.
that one I think's got the like CR16 undead giant baby. I think
Yes, I believe you're right.
something like that. It's ridiculous.
It's very silly, but I love that book because we actually played an evil campaign and I used the shit out of that book. To
Also,
make an undead character.
Lords of Madness and Heroes of Horror are also in a similar vein of stuff. Like they're also alphabetically, because I'm looking at the list now, right all around each other. It's Heroes of Horror, Libris Mortis, Lords of Madness.
There you go. They were all good books. But there were so many. There's just the options
there's
I
a
love.
lot.
And I'm a very big crunch person. I really love playing a game that has a lot of deeper stuff. And that obviously leads with the bad, where you end up getting things that are broken. Just very clearly broken,
Yeah.
things that are outside the bounds of what you really want for your game,
Yeah,
and
I
it
like
becomes very
character
apparent.
options. I don't need all the crunch necessarily, but it kind of comes when you have that much character options.
That's
I just want to be able to, always create a new character. Always, every character can be completely different than the last.
I like the idea. What really matters to me is I like the idea is that if you pick up a school or a class, and you can both start, you can both choose the same archetype, quote unquote, and yet you both can make decisions that make you completely different. And it's not just you, but it's your friend next door, and then the guy across the street, and then your buddy from 3 counties away have all started on the same path and ended up different things.
Yeah.
That's what matters to me. I love that. I love it when you can have such uniquely different characters, and that's where a lot of it came to me. Is games that like you could pick up a fighter who admittedly wouldn't be that great by the end.
No.
But you
Usually
could do
fighters were
so
if you
much.
needed a bunch of feats real quick.
Yes, you would
and
just
martial
jump
proficiency
in,
or whatever, right?
Just
Like-
jump in and fight her real fast.
Well, now it's do you want action surge?
Yeah, pretty much.
Pathfinder, I think, has probably the best fighter class out of these.
Yeah,
Gory.
I mean,
Gory.
Pathfinder is effectively the game that I jumped to because it really was.
Yeah.
And like I know we've said this before, Mal, where it's like it's essentially just D&D 3.75.
Yeah, that's what everyone calls it, is 3.75.
But I don't really want to belittle it as well, like the idea, because it truly did take a game that had when you really dig into it, had a lot of busted things about it and fixed up as much as it could cover. And
they dropped
more.
I mean, they basically dropped the use of prestige classes, which is probably my biggest thing I don't like about Pathfinder. But
they did do that. But I think they made I think multi-classing wasn't as penalizing, or at least I've never seen it as penalizing.
Yeah, I don't. That's possibly true. I mean, they added
Probably
archetypes. They added archetypes, which kind of replaced the prestige classes in a way. So that's basically what they did, which I liked. I mean, I prefer both, I guess, but I don't know. It depends. Like,
yeah, but I get what you're coming from. I mean, prestige classes were never that super crazy off on me. Although I would argue that if you're going the ranger route and you truly want to be an amazing ranger, then it's the one time where you definitely want to take arcane archer.
Yeah, character building in 3.5 usually like comes down to you either play a class that you can't get out of, like especially if it's like one that has very little support outside of one book or something. Like generally all your options are stay in this one class or whatever. Like the dragon shaman, you can't really multi-class out of.
Yeah. Well, not effectively anyway.
I think I think there's like one or two that you can do something with your dragon auras, but outside of that,
a lot of 3.5 was just about taking up a was a lot of 3.5 was just about multi-classing and dipping
that's
into,
the other
like,
way
prestiges and shit.
is a bunch of like you could do a bunch of multi-classes with prestige class or something, or but even more than one prestige class. But it was a lot more dippy, I guess, was the other way to go. It's all or nothing sort of a thing.
To go back, I like to just prove that point. When we were playing the evil campaign, I was playing an undead grave knight who had started off as a fighter, dipped into soul eater, and then was a priest who was stealing away magic. So it was very common for like level 20 builds to be like 4 or 5 classes listed between normal classes and prestige classes. Yep, it was just better that way. It was just better.
Yeah.
You could still, certain ones are still great by themselves, like Wizard.
Sure. That was just that would be like min maxing basically.
Yeah. But even if you didn't do that kind of thing and you were just playing a straight up class, the game was still fun even then, as long as you had a group that was worthwhile for it. But going back, I guess just jump back on my points. I really enjoyed the game. I started with it, and it really is my ideal version of what it was, because it had so much to play with, and I love a big sandbox. And I don't want just a sandbox where I can drive my car around in it. I want a sandbox where I can go into every store. I want a sandbox where if I go down to the residential area, I can walk into somebody's front house. They might shout at me, but I don't care. I can walk into the house and they couldn't stop me. I want to take their car. I want to drive it into their neighbor's house.
GTA.
And that neighbor's house this guy can go into. Yeah, pretty much.
Fantasy GTA.
Fantasy GTA. But that's my point. It's like, I want every little detail to be there. I want there's so many things that you can go into and look at and be like, oh, this is really cool. And there's so much variation to it. That's what I love. And it's very hard for me to walk away from that competition.
Yeah, I really wish I could play another 3.5 game.
but on the flip side, the version I actually don't like as much is I'm gonna go down a list here real quickly. I actually think 5 is fine. I actually think 5 is a very good version, and I think it's great as like my first D&D game because it does solve that problem.
It's
There's
the most
not a lot of
noob-friendly.
crunch. It really is.
Yeah.
Absolutely is, and it's a great. I'm glad for it because it really brings in people to see what this game
And I
is.
think the lack of
bounded accuracy is, I think, what makes it so easy.
Yeah.
The mechanics are simple, and it's not as intimidating when it's like when you only have like maybe 5 splat books as opposed to 100, right?
Yeah. It's a little bit different. Just a tad bit different. And then people can understand, like, because I mean, obviously you just only need the 3 to play: Monster Manual, Core Book, and Dungeons DM's book. And that's all you really need to play. But when you say like, well, there's like hundreds of different books, somebody's like, nah, that's too much for me. I'm out.
Right.
Even if they don't recognize it. But like for 5th edition, it's great. It's been simplified down. It's gotten rid of a lot of the junk that's unnecessary. It's done a very nice leveling system with the proficiency bonus just increasing as time goes on, which feels natural and appropriate for a character to get stronger just generally, as opposed to getting like an ability point to spend every 4 levels. And that kind of thing is just really nice. I never played 2nd edition. But I actually had a coworker who still played that even when 4th edition was still out.
Some people still play it now.
Yeah, people still play it now.
Every edition's gonna have it. People
Yeah.
still play it basically.
But I was always very interesting because we would talk a lot because we were both obviously playing games and whatnot. We would talk a lot back and forth. He would tell me about his game and stuff and what they were doing. And it was very interesting because I would kind of help him GM because he was the GM for his game. And I was obviously a part of mine and we were talking back and forth. It was very interesting to listen to the stories that came with. He kind of had like a very stereotypical group. He had like the one arguer who was always trying to get away with stuff. He had the one great role player, but they weren't always that solid with rules at times. It was very stereotypical, like almost that stereotypical like movie group. But it was very fun to listen to what he talked about and to go back and forth and see the work that he like pulled off and tell me like the shit that they did when they were done with the session. And obviously because it was closest to the 3.5 and 3.0, it was kind of I always had a little bit of fondness just because of like what it was and where it led to. And then 4th edition obviously is the edition I'm going to end up saying is really the edition I don't care all that much. And which is really funny because again, like as you pointed out, there's a lot of crunches for the characters, but I just didn't like the I didn't like what the game was presenting itself as. And for me, this was going to be a case of presentation. 3.5 presented itself as like, this is a class that has some meaning for the role play for what it is. And these are really what it focuses on and what it does. And it really wasn't caring about trying to fill some either like, damage dealer, tank, controller, healer. It wasn't trying to fill an archetype. It was just trying to be a class that did something with the game. And that's something I earnestly do enjoy. And when 4.0 came out, when it did that approach, it just didn't click with me because I had played the 3.5, and to me, it was like, this class is special because of what it is. If it's good or bad, that's unfortunate. And yes, melee should always get more support because they get totally blown out of the water by magic. And that is something I'm very glad for in 4.0, where they really were similar in strength ranges. And I was like, why couldn't that be in 3.5? But it wasn't clicking for me. I didn't want to play the damage dealer. I didn't want to play the tank. I wanted to play the fighter. I wanted to play the wizard. I wanted to play what the class was, not just another form of a different class that had a different job or role that might have had some small variations in spells and options for it. And that's really what put me off on it, and pushed me away. So it was unfortunate too because like from a tactical standpoint, the game is great. It does wonderful in what it needs to do. And if there was a game where like somebody was like, "Do you want to play a really tactical tabletop game?" I'd be like, "Yeah, let's play 4th edition then." And we would go right into it because I mean that's exactly what you want. It's like, I'm looking for a tabletop game to play, but I want something that's super tactical and whatnot. I'd be like, just pick up the 4th edition of Dungeons & Dragons. It'll exactly hit that itch.
Yeah, one of my friends actually, who was not a fan of 4E, like when they were the most of a fan of 4E was just making a character and doing some fighting, like just like basically arena style playing, as opposed to just basically just doing the battles out, not actually role playing or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen like the argument was that like the game really took like the role play out of things and whatnot. And I know you don't need rules to RP,
Right.
obviously, but I mean, the also from the other side, and I've seen
I-
this argument played out in response to that is that you're right, you don't need the rules for role play, but it does kind of set a precedent. If the best option, if all you do is give options to punch something better, generally you're going to default to I should probably just punch the problem. And I mean that can be true. Some obviously might agree, but when your options are more aimed towards one thing, it does kind of set an idea as like this is generally what the game is focusing on.
Depends on what your group wants to do.
Yeah,
you can totally role play with it. I mean, you can do that, like you were saying, you can do that with
Obviously,
any system. So
you can do it with any system.
You
don't need the books for it.
If your D&D group just likes dungeon running and like killing monsters, and that's what they love to do, then like 4E is awesome for that. They're probably gonna have a blast there.
Perfect for you. It is the best version if you just want to punch and fight things. I really hit that itch. So, but yeah, for me, 3.5 really was the top version, and 4.0 was just unfortunately a very low point for me. But I took that as a silver lining because it just meant that I was going to play 3.5 for another number of years before 5th edition
You had
dropped.
plenty of people to play it with.
I did.
I got into gaming like right when 4E launched, so it's kind of just the natural. That's how we went when we played D&D, and my DM didn't really like running it that much because all his previous groups of D&D were the kind of people who would have loved 4E, who don't really like make characters with backgrounds. They just made stat blocks and wanted to kill stuff. They want to do that with 3.5, but he never ran it with any of them. He ran 4E with us, so I mean, so it was weird because I hear people say that a lot, that it takes like the quote you said, it takes the role playing out of the game. But
yeah, I mean, I saw that.
It less does that, just more focuses on the combat. So, but anyways, all right,
yeah,
Meow. What's your topic?
Meow.
Same thing it would have been for the last few weeks.
I hear a horde of cats coming from Med's microphone.
Meow.
we got too many.
I've been playing Dragon Quest 11.
I was gonna
Have
say
you
one.
No.
You've been playing a 4-hour game for months.
Months. It's got to really play
That's
every
longer than 4
aspect of
hours.
it.
So yeah, Dragon Quest 11 came out in July 29th, 2017 in Japan.
1 year later.
Yeah, over
13 months later.
I
September
guess
4th.
we should port this over.
September 4th, 2018. We got it over here, and I've been loving it ever since. I'm a huge Dragon Quest fan. It's
one of your
done by
favorite
Square
game
Enix.
series, correct? If not your
Probably,
favorite.
yeah. One of my favorite, definitely one of my favorite series. I mean, it was basically it was like the first real Japanese RPG I played, and it's the first Japanese RPG basically to exist.
Yeah.
Dragon Quest or Dragon Warrior, Dragon Warrior over here. Dragon Quest 1 was like basically what created the foundation for JRPGs as we know them. But yeah, so Dragon Quest, I got it for the PS4. It's also on the PC, which I think is like a first really for the series. But
they finally said they're working on the Switch port too.
Yeah, I saw that too.
We promise, guys, it's coming in like a year.
By the time the new Switch is out, right?
Exactly. The
That's the news of
the last half of 2019. They're doing a new Switch model. But anyways,
supposedly. But yeah, so you play the Child of Destiny, the Luminary,
named
basically.
Hero,
right?
As all the Dragon Quest protagonists are.
You are the descendant of, of Dragon Quest 3, the main character of, which was the prequel to 1 and 2, so the first in the chronological stuff, but which is, what is it?
I know him as Lodo.
Right, I know him as
Edric.
Lodo. Edric, yes, it's Edric, and which is they finally translated it over to in this version, because the early stuff we got still translated it to Roto. But yeah, so it starts off with you being born, basically. And
little Trunks, baby.
right, and then then monsters attack, and you get Noah down the river, and are adopted by this nice old, basically Grandpa Gohan from Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
Well, because it's Akira Toriyama does the character design for the Dragon Quest series, so
Yeah.
and so upon your 16th birthday, after you complete the tutorial, which is you going through the
Coming of age ceremony, basically.
coming of age ceremony, basically, yeah. Your destiny is revealed to you, and you are told to go see the king, because he'll surely help you.
The beginning of every Dragon Quest game, basically.
Right.
Go see the king.
And yeah, the twist is the king says you are the bringer of darkness, the dark spawn, and you are to be killed, or at least imprisoned, and then killed, I think. But so yeah, which is in the opening. They kind of
It's like the
tease that
first
in the
hour
opening
in the game,
cinematic,
basically.
even though they show that in the opening cinematic.
Yeah.
Is the king and his people like attacking you basically on horseback. But yeah, so that's the opening, and then it goes on. It's your ultimate quest, as in any Dragon Quest game, is to save the world from evil. They're all like that basically, and this is the same but just done differently. And it is a they do the nice, they lampshade the go see the king thing is amusing, and but
That's how you get your first party member.
yep. So the game is, I guess, so the main story is like anywhere from 40 to 60 hours, or like what they call the main story, depending on like how much you grind and do side quests and stuff.
That's my problem.
There's also a post game, which the game doesn't even tell you. I'm sure some people don't even know
Weird.
about it, and just like, oh, it said, it ended. And then it took me back to the title screen. I'm done playing. But you really are supposed to continue playing that save file that had you save at the end. And then you get a whole nother third of the game.
Wow, it's that much?
It's probably about 20 hours ish.
Nice.
It's a sizable post game. And yeah, I've loved this game. It's the most Dragon Quest game I think ever. Which I think the director or someone even was like, we distilled everything about Dragon Quest into this game.
Spread it out.
True.
It's probably why the Japanese love it so much.
Yeah, I mean, Dragon Quest over there is beloved.
Yeah.
Like, there's even the rumor of why they release on Saturdays is because
People call out.
People,
So
call
many
out
people.
from work and school and skip to go get the game. So that's why they only release on Saturdays now. So
Yeah, it's I mean the system is very much still like Dragon Quest doesn't do a lot with changing its system across the
Right.
games. They'll do like a little bit of different
Well,
stuff, but it
yeah.
is very much like you have
they will add
abilities.
things. Like I think it's 4 or whatever had monster catching, which basically laid the foundation for
Yeah.
Pokemon.
3 had the job system.
And had marriage in the games, where multiple partners you can marry. I think it had 3 choices where you would
Did it
marry
ever-
and actually raise a family.
Did it change a lot of the story at all, or was it kind of more of a side thing?
What?
The marriage part.
I actually haven't played that one, so I can't speak to how much it changed, but I just know, I mean, that's like an old, that was 4, I think, which would have been originally on
NES.
Yeah, NES. So
Oh.
I don't know how much it changed, but you at least had different
Probably not a
characters.
lot for the NES,
Right.
but
Was it ever repeated again? Like, do they keep
Not
adding
like that.
small things, or is
No, each one will
Really?
have like its own. Well,
Okay.
sort of. Like they did bring back some form of monster catching in 8 that you could
Okay.
summon into a fight for you as well. And actually, the monster catching thing became its own series, Dragon Quest Monsters, which I've played the first, second, and then the first 1 and 2 of the Joker series, which we didn't get the third one because they also don't localize all their games over here, which is very sad. And I'm just glad we got this one.
Yeah.
And like 7 kind of feels different too. It involves a lot of time travel, like, which is not in like the others, like going back and forth a lot.
Yeah, I think you do it once in Dragon Quest 1.
Yeah. Actually, you haven't played 7, right? Obs?
No, I have not. I've only played 1, 2, 3, and 8.
You might like 7 just because of the extensive job
I love job
system
systems.
it has. So it has a bunch of normal jobs, like that you would then level up and get like advanced version of those jobs. But it also has monster jobs.
Yeah.
Where like every type of monster has its own job that you can then get and learn.
Oh, that's cool.
But yeah, anyway, that's a tangent. This one doesn't really. This one again just kind of refines all of Dragon Quest and just has like the very basics, but done very well. Like, it is turn-based. They did add something so that you could walk around or move around in the fight, but it doesn't do anything.
No, it's just something to
fun.
do.
I turned it off.
I do it, so
I just it has like a crafting system, which I think is definitely an upgrade from 8's, where 8's took real time to craft, or I think it may have been based on the number of steps you took.
Yeah, it was something like
craft.
that.
This one, you just it's like its own mini game of hammering out the item. Like there's like a thing you bash until it gets into the sweet spot, basically.
Yep, and you got different kinds of flourishes you can do and stuff.
Yep. But at its heart, it's just a traditional Japanese RPG, which is, I mean, good and bad, I guess, for some people. Like, it's no Persona 5, right? It also is a lot more lighthearted, like, than your traditional, or like not your traditional, but like the series like Final Fantasy.
Yeah,
or
your
Persona,
typical JRPG.
Yeah, especially like your current ones. Like these days, you get a lot more like gritty stuff, right? This one has like there's some darkness to it, but there's always going to be a lighthearted tone, especially because just the monster names. Like
I love the monster designs, or like some of the best like in any series. Because it's all Akira Toriyama. They're just adorable. I love the cucumber guys. My favorite one. I can't. Cruelcumber, I think is his name.
Something like that. The localization team did amazing work. Like there's a boar that wears basically a large witch hat, which honestly we have a better name than the Japanese version. The Japanese translation is basically just big hat.
Yeah.
Ours is like the first one I think is ham shanwich. Which is sham witch.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it sounds like sandwich. So yeah. It's just, and then there's like a robotic egg that walks around, and it's eggs. Eggs. Now I'm tripping over the word, but it's
exoskeleton.
You'll get it.
Yeah. But yeah, so a lot of Japanese. They love puns, and they kind of took that. They brought.
Sometimes it's hard to translate wordplay over
to
English.
I'm just surprised at how good they've done with like. It's not going to be exactly the same name as the Japanese version, but they definitely kept the.
I think it took so long too because they had the Japanese version doesn't have any voice acting at all, and the English does. They're actually for the next version adding in Japanese voice acting apparently.
Yeah, I heard about that. But yeah, they've always been silent, which I mean, I guess we've only ever had 8, right? I think 8's the only one with voice acting.
9 came out over here too, didn't it?
Yep, but it was on the 3DS.
Yeah, and then we never got 10, which was an MMO.
Right.
A Wii MMO.
Yeah.
There's something
imagine
you
that one
never
did
thought
super
you would ever
well.
hear. An MMO on the Nintendo Wii.
I mean, I guess if anything was going to do super well, that like a Wii MMO, it would have been Dragon Quest.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we haven't. So 8 was the last Western, or no, I mean 9 was the last major release, and that was quite a while ago.
5 years, 4 or 5 years, I think.
Let's
I
see,
mean, it's no
was-
FF13 to 15 gap.
No. We got it in 2010, so 8 years.
Oh God, it was that long ago.
Yeah. They've had quite a few.
I remember when it came out.
spin-offs, but again, they don't. We don't get a lot of the spin-offs.
Yeah.
Actually,
Dragon Quest Builders.
some people thought that we might not get the localization because of that sham witch, the boar with the witch hat. Every spin-off, every game that it has been in so far before 11, we have never gotten.
It's the curse of the Shamwich.
Right, that's what people were thought. Big Hat was cursing the localization, but we finally got it.
He's here. He's here, folks.
Yeah. Oh, and they each character, you end up with like at least quite a few party members, which more than 8 had only 4, well, including the hero. This one's got 7, which I mean, or it takes
How many?
takes like I think 15 hours ish to get your last 2
I'm
party
like
members.
20 hours in, and I think I'm
How-
about to get the last 2.
How many people can you have a party at a time? Like a 3-person
4.
party?
4. You sometimes have guests.
You can't, yeah, and then which guests act independently and can't die.
Do they take up one of your slots?
No.
Oh, thank God.
So
Okay.
you could if you have 4 people and a guest, there are 5 people on screen.
Also,
that is the way every game should do it.
Yeah.
By the way.
Right?
I really hate when games do that. That was like one of my biggest complaints for Final Fantasy X was that like when you got a guest, they took up a slot. So if you
Oh,
wanted
yeah.
to build somebody, they were like, "Nope, you have to deal with this guest."
You can also swap in characters.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Sort of like
I'll
Final
vote.
Fantasy X.
Oh,
it's a little different,
But,
it's not
yeah.
as quick.
Right. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
okay.
smarter to swap in people's whose not turn it is right now. Because if you switch out the person's whose turn it is, it will just go to the next person and you won't get a turn. And each character has, I think, at least, well, the mages only have 2, but like the pure mages, but everyone else has like at least 3 different weapons you can equip. Oh, I guess the hero also only has 2, but yeah, most characters have like 3 different weapons, which all act differently. Like there's one character, Sylvando, who can have
He has a
swords, which
remember
are
correctly.
like like swords are kind of like just your all rounder. They're good at speed and damage, and their skills are just they wide varying or whatever that kind of just work in a lot of different situations. He also can do whips, which can attack a group of enemies, hitting them all at the same time with weapon drop off damage as it goes down the line, but also can inflict status effects and debuff type things. And then knives, which do a lot of damage to things that have already been debuffed. And then they also will have other ability type skills you can learn, which his other, like he can also learn I'm trying to remember what it's called. Basically, you can learn other non-weapon related abilities. Can't remember the names off the top of my head, but there's a lot going on, which is why OBS is taking forever to play the game.
He's got a
trying to
lot.
grind
It's
everything.
the license grid.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
sort of
I gotta unlock all these nodes. I gotta get
It's-
these skills. I can't stop.
It's kind of like well, I guess I don't know. The world layout is kind of 12-esque, where it's giant. You can
Yeah.
wander around a giant area, but then it like will. There's a point where you go through and move on to the next area. It loads in the next area.
Yeah, very much like 12.
Oh, actually, the biggest quality of life thing in it is monsters are on the map that you can just walk
Yeah.
around. Basically, I love that in games.
Yeah.
I don't need random encounters.
Yeah, and it just makes it easier for stuff like speed runs and stuff too. When you
Yeah.
don't want to fight, you're not forced to do it.
It also means I am always underleveled.
Yeah.
Like whenever I get a new character, they're always like 5 levels over my guy.
It's extremely easy to dodge encounters. Yeah, we were talking about that a few weeks ago. You were always like way underleveled. I was always like 2 or 3 levels higher than the people I get in my party. So.
Yeah, because he just grinds. I don't grind, and you don't really need to grind, especially.
No, it's not hard at all.
It's got auto battling or sort of things, which you can set orders to like fight wisely is like the default or sort of.
Oh man, I take control of my characters.
Or you can tell them no, don't use any MP, so they just basically auto attack sort of, or use unlimited use items if they've got any. And then there are just some go all out, where they will just use all their most expensive and hard hitting abilities, or you can take individual control over. But like when I'm going through just like levels, I'll often just set it to fight wisely and let them do that for me. Like I'll take control in like the important battles. There are, I think, is it 80? I think it might be like 80 different side quests throughout the entire game. Which, I mean, they're usually like, go to this area and get fight this person to get the thing, or kill the monster with certain powers, or
bring me the item, talk to this person, stuff like that.
Yeah, nothing too extensive. There are some that are like more involved. Like there are some side quests that don't involve like the listed quests. That they're like in the post game. There's one in particular that you have to go. They're like, man, it'd be sure cool if we could do this thing and with these people, and then you go find the people. Like that's not tracked anywhere, and you go to like a few different areas, and each area involves like doing a thing. So there are some more involved side quests, but a lot of them are very simple and quick. It's also laid out so that each town you go to basically has its own story going on, that you kind of its own problem that you need to solve. So that it's almost like episodic in a way, and then once you complete that episode, you move on to the next one. And it's very contained, but will often link back to the main story at hand. I love it. It's really good. I mean, I have a lot of fondness like for Dragon Quest series, and there's a lot of things that, I mean, there's so many elements that are very familiar, like the monster design and everything. Abilities are the same between them. Like there are certain things between Final Fantasies that you kind of see, like there's usually
spells,
chocobo,
monsters,
certain things, but basically there's more, like you can see a lot more of connection between the different Dragon Quests than Final Fantasy, which is kind of, I mean, they're both Square Enix now, so they can do different things with the different series. Yep,
it's their old school traditional JRPG series.
People who have loved Dragon Quest, it's just good for, because you get to see all that stuff, but it's also good if you want just a traditional JRPG and haven't really played any.
Yeah, I'd say it's an easy Dragon Quest to start with and get into.
Yeah, exactly. As long as the length isn't a problem for you.
If you don't mind long games.
If you're getting into JRPGs, you're kind of already going with that. You already kind of know that's a thing. The music isn't great.
It's fine.
I mean, some of it's. I mean, I think the tracks are good. But I think there's some. It gets overly repetitive. There's not enough music for the length of the game. Mm-hmm. Also, I mean, the composer is not a great guy professionally and personally. He's like he wants to go back to pre-World War II imperialist Japan.
Oh my gosh.
And he hates the West, so we only get the MIDI versions of his songs in the game's localizations.
They have the mod on the PC version.
Yep, someone made a mod so that you can get the orchestra versions, like the Japanese releases. Which I wouldn't be surprised if that disappears soon. But just trying to think of things that weren't great. Some of the voices aren't amazing. I think I liked all of the characters, like voice act.
The main
like,
cast
there was
was
only
fine.
a hand. Yeah, there were only a handful of voices that I really didn't like. Like so each each town and type of people have their own like visually and maybe vocally culture. Like you can each town is
Yeah, there's
stylized in its own
Italy.
way.
There's
Yeah,
Egypt.
and a lot of them will
or
have
not
a
Egypt,
different
but Middle Eastern.
accent. Yeah. There's a lot more like Asian influences in this game than any other Dragon Quest, which is interesting. Like Ob's waifu is wields a Naginata base form, her base weapon. But there's one town that only speaks in haiku.
What?
Yeah, like all of everything they do.
Is just haiku based?
Yep.
Wow.
And it's actually
really rough left to live.
but it's just a way to give each town a personality, basically.
So if somebody's on fire and they're shouting, "Help me! I'm on fire!" They're not gonna get any help because they didn't haiku it.
I mean, it's never explicitly said that they have to speak in haiku. They just all do. Like it just comes natural to them, I guess. If they were on fire, they would somehow figure out a way to say that in a haiku form. It's secondhand.
My body burns. Somebody fetch me some water. Seriously, help me.
Yeah. And then there's another race. Or there's another. So I guess there are mermaids in the game, and the voice I have the worst time with is a mermaid. But they also speak in I don't think it's iambic pentameter, but it's something like that, where they also have their own.
There's the one town that talks in nothing but haiku.
We just said all of that. You were gone, yeah. We were making fun of that, but
I was just wondering if people, if they're on fire, do they also still speak in haiku, or do they like drop that?
It's really weird.
Yeah. So they do like and then each I'm trying to think. So yeah, I mean, but mostly I like the voice acting and stuff. I think it's very interesting that they've decided, we get it, but the Japanese don't, at least not initially. I like most of the character, your class, or party members. One in particular. Do you have the two mages, the twin mages?
Yes.
There's the healer of the two.
Selena.
I think.
Serena.
Selena.
Yeah. I think it's Serena.
Whose Japanese name is Senya. She has like almost no characterization up until the end of the main story.
Really?
Yeah, she's basically just a warm body, is what I heard saw someone describe her as for most of the game. But outside of that, I pretty much liked everyone else. So that's pretty good when you have a cast of that size.
Yeah.
But yeah. I've put 100 hours into it, I believe.
Holy moly.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Well, that's in a month. Yeah. I mean, when you do it in a week, Mal, come talk to me.
Plus, that's not an exact time, because sometimes I'll like leave it running while I go get dinner or something.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I've probably put about 90 hours into beating the game entirely. So, yeah. I grind out. I was earlier. Me and Obs talked about it. I grind out items, and he grinds out like levels. So
yeah,
I do a bunch of the side quests to get the strongest items, and that's what lets me stay low level. Basically, but yeah.
I just want to fill that license forge up.
I don't care about it.
I've got like 20 hours in the game, and I don't even have all the party members yet. So
yeah. It's gonna be a long one for you if you don't learn.
I'll probably
keep going.
I'll probably be playing it till the end of the year, probably. So
on and off.
Yeah, I play it basically on the weekends. Was what I was telling you earlier. Mm-hmm. I probably play a few hours on Saturday and a few hours on Sunday. My weekends have been pretty busy because football, and we've been running Werewolf on Sundays. So I haven't got a
It's
whole lot of
just been
time for gaming.
It's just been a very comforting game for me. Like,
It is. It's a very
it's
laid
something-
back,
it's
chill
already-
game.
yeah, it's very chill, and it's already very familiar. Like as soon as I pick it up, basically, and
It's the perfect Switch game. That's why it's coming to Switch.
I never, it doesn't do anything mind blowing, but it's just very solid, and
Yeah.
it's the fundamentals basically, and I just love it.
And that's pretty much every Dragon Quest game is going to give you that.
Yeah.
All right.
Definitely comfort in knowing kind of like addition.
Right, it's not like starting a new Final Fantasy and being like, okay, what am I?
What
in
am I
for?
getting
Yeah, pretty
myself
much, yeah.
into for the next 40 hours?
Okay, time to learn a whole new game.
Boy bands. All
I
right.
hope this one's completed.
I hope there's more than a hallway.
Oh, Square.
Sure would be a shame if this game was just one giant linear path.
With female Cloud, am I right?
Am I right?
Who's the developer's self or insert waifu character?
I don't
So much
know.
so that he brought her into the real world in the canon
did.
game story,
Oh my god.
and she's now a Louis Vuitton model. But anyways, I could talk about Lightning all day. Anyway, let's get on
Just
to
like
my topic.
Noctis.
I'm going to talk about a game with a storied past here. It's had a bit of division within its community lately. I'm of course talking
thank God.
again about
Destiny.
Bubsy 3D.
Oh,
No.
I don't know why that got me so much. Bugsy 3D.
They can't make another Bubsy 3D game. They keep making the 2D
No!
ones.
The originals were classics.
Yeah.
Nobody can ever them. Open Magnus, masterpieces. I
That
can't
wily
believe they remake
bobcat.
this.
His clips are so funny. No, I'm going to talk about World of Warcraft, the new WoW expansion. Battle for Azeroth. Battle for Azeroth picks off after the last expansion. For those who know about WoW lore, the Burning Legion has been defeated, basically. And now we're back to good old vanilla style Horde versus Alliance. It's the kind of stuff you
Which
love.
are you?
We had to explain that in case anybody from a different planet or who had died and resurrected within the last 20 years didn't know about this game.
Yeah, exactly.
I
You're
assume
too
that's
big.
the only two groups that would not know about this.
Yeah, you're two big warring factions in the game, basically. So, Mao asked what faction I'm playing. Right now, I'm playing Horde. I have a very high level Alliance character too. But
Do you wear your shoulder guard?
I shouldn't, because Sourfang is the shit. He's the true Horde chief, true war chief, not that Sylvanas. But so very much Sylvanas and Anduin don't like each other. They're the two leaders of the opposing factions. There's a new resource called Azeroth, which is supposed to heal the wounds of Azeroth left behind by
Do you
Sargeras's
use it to
giant
buy
sword.
loot boxes?
No, but you do use it for other things, and it's quite contentious. This is where a lot of the contention in the community comes
Yeah, I've seen some talk about
Yep.
this.
from. So
Joking.
So yeah, the story, you basically, there's an Alliance very powerful mage named Jaina Proudmoore on the Alliance side. A lot of the Alliance story goes with going back to her home islands.
She's
And-
voiced by Laura Bailey, isn't she?
Yes.
I believe so, yeah. And
Yes, yes.
you tried to get basically her nation of people on the side of the Alliance once again. I think in like Warcraft 1 or 2 they left the Alliance. It might have been 3 even when Arthas went insane. But
I don't think it was 3 because I actually remember that game. And I don't think they were almost mentioned.
yeah, they were somewhat. I think it was 2. So you got to get them back to the Alliance. A lot of the Alliance story revolves around people who are trying to backstab the current leader, Jaina's mother, and who still believes Jaina is somehow responsible for the death of her father. So that's what a lot of that is, getting like various noble houses onto your side and trying to get them back into the Alliance. The Horde side is basically Black Panther.
It is. That's so
It
true.
totally is. The achievement for completing all the zones is called Forever Zandalar. or
Oh
Zandalar
my
Forever. So yeah, it's basically Black Panther with Cthulhu monsters.
Great.
It's pretty awesome. You go to not Wakanda. It even has the part where like the city reveals itself.
Oh wow.
They say they don't say Wakanda forever, but they say like for Zandalar. They say all the phrases. There's like lots of Black Panther in jokes, which is weird because the game was in development before like Black Panther came out. Like Alpha was going on before the movie launched.
Change, I guess.
I think they probably like started to lean into it when the movie got popular during like Alpha and
some
Beta.
Similarities and stuff.
Yeah. So
I mean,
yeah,
generally, the voice acting lines generally come out pretty late into the process.
Yeah, they record
where
those
got
later
everything
on.
Done, so it could have actually been happening in between when they like it just came out. They saw it, it was like, oh, we got to make some references in our voice acting, and they could have just gotten them in there really quickly. So just do a couple more lines and we'll use them.
Yep. They're a troll empire, Zandalar. They're very South American themed. Like the big horde hub city is a giant ziggurat.
Neat.
And it's all about like their king. The king's his daughter basically wants to save him from the people who are going to betray him. So a lot of the quest zones revolve around that. There's like factions of trolls that want to kill him and usurp his throne. Yada yada yada. You go around, you find out like they're allied with old gods and stuff, and trying to enlist their aid to take them down. I think my supposition, a lot of people's like kind of hypothesis, is that the old gods are going to be pulling the strings and in the war at large and stuff. So now that like the big bad of Warcraft, Sargeras, is like defeated in quotes, at least for now. So yeah, the questing is really fun. The story is really good. It's the zones all look amazing. They all are really awesome looking. There's only one, since I've played all the zones I've played on Alliance and Horde. There's only one zone in the game I don't like out of 6, really. And even then, it's not like a strong hate, like some of the old zones. Like, the Burning Crusade zones, I do not like doing at all. Like, I will just like, if I level, I will run dungeons and avoid leveling in those zones. That's how much I hate them, just because I've done them so many times.
They're also just like a wasteland, right?
No, not all of them are. The first one is. The first one's a giant, it looks like Mars, basically, the Hellfire Peninsula. And then there's like forest, and there's like one that's all kind of like crags of energy. One is like a vast like plain and stuff. So there's some like different stuff, but they're all like monocolored kind of themed. Like the color design and stuff I'm not really a fan of. But anyways, so yeah, they want to lean into PvP stuff. So one big change is war mode, where you get a 10% experience bonus if you're in war mode, but that flags you as PvP. So people can come get you. They really want lots of world PvP in the expansion. They kind of incentivize you to get bonus Azeroth power, gold, and experience all while you're in war mode. So coincidentally, though, I haven't run into a lot of world PvP, and I've leveled in war mode the entire time.
Really?
Yeah. I'll explain kind of why. You don't. The other factions don't really start coming into your land until they level cap and start doing world quests. So they'll all be 120s, but the game like scales you level wise. Like it'll scale them down or you up to basically like meet. So you just don't get ganked essentially. Like you probably won't beat them, but you can. You probably won't just because of the way the gear works, and I'll explain that in a second. The dungeons are all really good. One of my big complaints about Legion's where it really started to, I think, lean into more narrative stuff, especially while questing. A lot of the narrative in the old expansions was baked into the raids. It revolved around that. I mean, you got some of it while you were questing and stuff, but there wasn't a whole lot of like really big scenes and stuff during the questing like there is now. But the dungeons in Legion, in my opinion, weren't as memorable, really. Like, I don't even really remember any of them now, like I do some of the older expansions. Like, the new ones are all really good, though. They're really fun to run. Yeah, that's like the good stuff. And I'm probably going to sound really negative after this point. I actually really like the expansion. I like it a lot better than Legion and the one before it. But some of the big complaints about the game and stuff I agree with is class imbalance. The game really wasn't ready. I think they launched it early, and I don't know why they wanted to launch it so early, or kind of rush it out. Some of the classes weren't done. Like shamans, or none of their classes worked really until a hotfix like a few days ago. They were just not viable.
Like what way?
The specs weren't fit. Like abilities just didn't work right. Some of their gear Azeroth powers just didn't make any sense or didn't work correctly. Like the healers just couldn't output as much healing. Like you just don't bring a shaman healer at all with you in anything that's like mythic content.
Wow.
Shadow priests didn't really work. Warrior tanks just don't have enough mitigation. They're like super squishy compared to the other tanks. And they just didn't, it's because they didn't know how to balance their active mitigation throughout beta. So it feels like they kind of got halfway through beta without fixing stuff and launched it. And they're like just now fixing stuff a month later and catching up.
Wow.
So that's a problem. A lot of people are not happy with class balance. And they've been putting out hot fixes constantly to try to kind of scale things up. The other big thing is obviously always like, what do you do at the end of the game?
Yeah, in-game stuff.
Yeah. So basically you're expected to do world quests. World quests give you rep faction. Basically there's different factions for each larger faction. You kind of build reputation by doing quests with them, and it gives you access to better gear, like pets and toys and stuff like that. But that's a big way to earn gear and get geared up to go into raids. Another thing you do is called Island Expeditions, which I actually quite enjoy. In Legion, you had an artifact weapon, and it was kind of like this big class fantasy, class quest story-based thing. Like Frost Death Knight's got like a shard of Frostmourne, Arthas' sword, when he was the Lich King. Like Paladins could go get a legendary sword that Tyrion Fordring used, who's like this very important Paladin in lore, Light Ashbringer. So they're like these big legendary weapons kind of you went and got. In the new expansion, you have a neck piece called the Heart of Azeroth, and it's where all your, for lack of a better term, artifact power comes in. Artifact power is basically almost like a secondary XP bar. It's probably the best way to think about it. It levels up, and as it levels up, it gains item levels, and it interacts with your Azeroth gear. Your headpiece, your chest piece, and your shoulder pieces, I believe that's the only three, are called Azeroth armor. Basically, they have their own talents kind of built within the armor. And you unlock them as your Heart of Azeroth neck piece gains levels. And higher leveled, item leveled gear has higher item level requirements for your neck piece. So it's basically a giant grind as far as that goes, of leveling up your Heart of Azeroth. But
that sounds incredibly fun. I love grinding.
But Azeroth pieces, or your Azeroth armor pieces, a lot of the abilities aren't balanced at all. There's obviously like the 2 or 3 you want, but there's like 30 different abilities right now. So it's even more grinding because you have to not only get a high item level shoulder piece or head piece or chest piece, you also have to get the one with the traits you need. And it's a very, even more so RNG based than your typical MMO would be. Because you'll do lots of dungeon runs just to get the trinket you need dropped or the shoes you need dropped. But then you have to go beyond that and get a specific headpiece with the specific traits you need on it. So it's even more grinding.
That's like a sin for RNG. You never put RNG on top of RNG. You can have 2 different systems that have RNG and they might coincide, but you don't put RNG in RNG. That'll piss people off.
This is where, this is what's pissed everyone off and why people aren't having fun with the expansion. Luckily, I'm not like really on the hard grind to, do raids and get raid ready. So it isn't really affecting me. But I understand where people are coming from on that too, because it's just, like you said, it's a grind on top of a grind. It's just it doesn't make sense, and if the abilities were better scaled with each other, then it wouldn't be as much of that. And that's what Blizzard's intent always was, and they haven't been able to balance these numbers even after a month. That's why people are mad. They're just not interesting abilities either. They're all passives, where just like something will proc, or you'll get like a heal every once in a while. It's not interesting at all.
I've seen it. I actually looked at some of the stuff there because I actually played a little bit of the expansion, trying it out. Worth my time. And I got like the first piece, and it was like, oh, you can get like at least 3 pieces. And I was looking at the bonuses, and I'm like, okay, well, they don't really do anything interesting. They make like it do a little bit more damage, or like, oh, you get a little bit of healing on the side when you use this thing. And I'm like, well, that's neat, I guess.
Use this ability, and you get a dot.
Yeah, that's really what it was.
Like,
I was like, wow, that's nothing.
And it's those spread out across 30 like abilities. And there's the obvious good ones and the obvious bad ones. So
I don't know why they do that.
Yeah. So yeah, you have to grind that out, and you also have to grind out island expeditions are kind of the best way to get Azeroth power and further increase the item level of your Heart of Azeroth neck piece. And they're actually fun. They're you team up with 3 people total, and you can do 3v3 against actual players of the opposite faction or against the computer. And it's basically like a point PvP system where you complete certain objectives on the island. You like mine Azeroth, kill mobs, hunt down the other faction members and kill them, do quests and stuff. It's a cool little interesting like PvP thing. It's a lot of fun, and you get a lot of Azeroth power for doing it. So you kind of want to grind that. Like there's a weekly, if you mine so much Azeroth, you get like 1,000 Azeroth power, which is a lot. It'll gain you like a level on your Heart of Azeroth. So,
is there a cap for the Heart of Azeroth?
No, it just gets to a ridiculous amount. The XP gets so exponential at certain levels that it's just like you would have to sit there and do it forever to gain a level. But they also lower the level requirement every week, so it gets easier and easier to level up every week.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, there's one set of raids out. It's already been beaten on Mythic by Method, who's like the best guild in the world, I think, as far as rating goes. But yeah, so I mean that's like the big thing. The 2 biggest things I've seen people complain about are class imbalance and just the Azeroth system. And Blizzard's kind of went like, well, we're this far in, we're stuck with it. I mean, this is what you got. You got to live with it, kind of. We'll do our best to make it as good as we can, but here you go. So, I've been enjoying the game, but it's probably because I haven't been playing it quite as serious as I used to in the past. I've only been putting in like an hour, maybe 2, like 3 or 4 nights a week, and, you know, taking the leveling slow and doing what I want to do and going through dungeons and not worrying about the grind, like just putting my nose to the grindstone like you do with certain MMOs. So it's fun to enjoy like the World of Warcraft story, because my favorite expansions, Wrath of the Lich King and Cataclysm, the 2 I probably played the most, I kind of basically ignored the story. So it's nice, and I went super fast in those. So it's nice to, you know, I think if you're more casual, it's a better expansion for the more casual player. But for the hardcore players, it is not a good expansion. So it's probably the most it or Warlords of Draenor. Like, I don't remember Warlords of Draenor being this contentious when it launched. I think it was just very meh. It was like the most vanilla expansion.
At this point, we're down to like the really hardcore WoW people.
Yeah, the people who stuck around and played it forever.
Like, yeah. I imagine they're not getting tons of new players.
No. And they've also just over time scaled back just the number of buttons you push in any given spec. Like right now I'm playing a Retribution Paladin, and I only have like 4 different buttons in my rotation, and I'm standing there for a good majority of the time. Whereas compared to an MMO like Final Fantasy 14, if you're DPSing, 14 has like the most crazy complicated, in some cases, like DPS rotations. You'll push 15 different buttons through one cycle of your rotation.
DPS jobs keep you busy in that game. Not only do you need to be performing button presses, but you need to be doing them in certain orders, and you need to be on certain positions of the boss to perform the best damage.
You got combos and stuff that you build through.
You got combo chain.
So
the Dragoon has a 5-hit combo. I affectionately like to call it the Tekken 5-hit combo.
your wombo combo.
Yeah, pretty much.
So yeah, and another thing people don't like is that a lot of abilities are now on the global cooldown. So a lot of your even cooldowns, and this is where a lot of tanks are kind of getting mad because their active mitigation buttons, the things that you need to push in like a moment's notice, are on the global cooldown now. So you have to wait, and they've also extended the length of the global cooldown. So I think it's 1.5 seconds now. So you have to be very predictive with your active mitigation as a tank. So just with there's all like I think your interrupt as a ret paladin is like one of the only things not on the global cooldown.
What have you thought about the GCD changes?
It's a little bit slower. Like if I was tanking, I would probably not. I'd probably see more of a oh my god, this is driving me insane kind of thing. And I want a tank. I want a warrior tank. Warrior is my favorite class in the game and has been since Cataclysm. Unfortunately, they're just in a really bad place right now. And I decided to play Ret Paladin to level with one of my roommates, and I'm not enjoying that class really. So a lot of these classes aren't going to be fixed in earnest until the first major patch when all the new raids and stuff come out. So, and they haven't even announced a date. A lot of people thought it was going to be October, but it's not looking like October now.
Man.
So yeah, it's been contentious. But you know, I've been enjoying it. When you play it casually, I mean, it's a lot less of a grind, and this is perhaps the most grindy, at least initially, of any of the expansions, just because of the way the Azeroth armor works. Because I don't know what they were thinking with that. See, it was a good idea to have the Heart of Azeroth, because in the previous expansion, Legion, if you wanted to go into other specs, you had to put artifact power into that spec's weapon. Each weapon in a class each spec in a class had a different weapon. But now it's all on a neck piece, which you just share from spec to spec. So that's a good idea, but then they just botched the armor. And there are traits later on when you get purple items that are spec-specific talents.
I was gonna
and
say,
when you
are those
get
specs? Yeah.
Yeah, and when you get an item that's like, if you're playing a fire mage, you get a fire mage talent on your Azeroth shoulders. It doesn't transition over when you become a frost or an arcane mage. So then you have to grind out an additional piece of Azeroth armor.
Jeez.
So it's just, yeah. And
It sounds like, honestly, it sounds like it's the same issue. You have to have certain pieces of gear, but if you really want to be prepped, which matters when you're endgame raiding and you're trying to stay current, is that it makes it nigh impossible to switch over to a different spec because you then need to have the gear that has the proper setups on it.
Yeah. You almost want to pick a class that you know is going to be needed in a raid.
Yeah.
If you're playing like a shaman, you're just kind of screwed right now, or like a shadow priest or something.
It's a little bit frustrating just because of that.
Yeah, I think they just rushed it. For whatever reason, Blizzard tried to rush this out as fast as they can. And
I don't know why either. It's not like they had anybody competing with them.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I don't know. It just didn't seem done. And unfortunately, this is the system that WoW players are stuck with for the foreseeable future. So if you want to play it, enjoy the grind. And if you are playing it, I hope you are enjoying the grind. Or maybe you're enjoying it like me and just taking it easy. So do what you want to do. You got to play WoW how you want to play it, or any MMO for that matter. Do the things you enjoy. That's how you keep enjoying the game, essentially. But, all right. This has been episode 66, a podcast of Five Rings, your source of entertainment and enlightenment. I've never botched that sentence. It's been 3 weeks. Give me some slack here. I can't read.
Much dishonor. I demand the 81
Where's the one go? I can't find it. Your source of enlightenment in the realm of video games, tabletop, anime, film, and tech. Each episode of Podcast 5 Rings releases Monday mornings on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Talk by Topic day by day on YouTube, with the full video releasing on Friday. Check us out on social media. We're on Twitter at PodcastLiveR, Facebook PHR Podcast. I know Meta and Lily have been streaming a lot more lately. They're at twitch.tv/PSO. Tell us about what you've been playing.
We actually have been playing. I just showed her Einhander from the PS1 days.
Holy moly.
Yeah, I showed her that. She liked the game. She thought it was very cool. She was very impressed with my ability to dodge bullets. So I'm gonna put that one on my
like
ego
you do.
score, like I do. And then she's been playing Parasite Eve because I've never seen Parasite Eve. I saw it.
Spoopy. Spoopy.
I saw it all the time on like ads and shit, but I always thought to myself, like, is it like just Squaresoft trying to do like, a Resident Evil game? Okay, I guess, whatever, sure. And then Lily showed me the game, and I gotta say it's pretty interesting. It's pretty funny. Like, it definitely suffers from 90s writing.
Yeah.
But I do like the fact that the game is this very interesting mishmash of an action RPG at the time. For what it was. It's really cool, actually, so I really enjoy it. So we're gonna be doing that again. I'm not sure if we're gonna be streaming it this Saturday, but that's gonna be on every Tuesday at minimum. So that's all
Cool.
we've been doing so far.
All right, that's this episode. We should be back next week. We still have to work out a potential monthly mod. We've talked about a few different things, but we got to get a date and the game squared away. So that'll be announced soon, probably by next week, hopefully. And until then, we'll see you later.
See you later.